Okay, we'll come back to 5.2 section part 2. Okay, we'll do a quick review of what we just did in 5.2 part 1. So here's the question. It says, to the nearest degree, which values of theta satisfy the equation tangent theta equals to -5/3 for angle theta between 0 and 360 degrees. So right away, I notice I'm looking at all four quadrants, and we have tangent being negative. So I know I would have two cases. Case 1 in Q2, okay, in quadrant 2. So in that case, we have to look for reference angle first. And to recall, to find the reference angle, you take the trig ratio of the absolute value of the trig ratios. Okay, so instead of inverse tangent of -5/3, it's going to be inverse tangent of 5/3. So now if I put this into a calculator, I get 59 degrees. So that is my reference angle. So in quadrant 2, reference angle is 59. So here's my first possible value of theta. This is going to be 180 minus 59. This is 121 degrees. Case 2, it would be in quadrant 4. So again, recall, it was all students take calculus. So tangent is positive here in quadrant 3 and quadrant 1 for A and T. So quadrant 2 and 4 are negatives. Therefore, we have reference angle right here being 59. Here is our angle 2. To find angle 2, you go 360 minus 59. This is 301 degrees. Okay, so that's what we did last time. All right, we're going to move on to something new. It's the unit circle. Okay, so unit circle means it's a circle with a radius 1. Okay, so we are still going to draw our x-axis and y-axis. We are going to draw a circle centered at 0, 0. So here is the circle. 0, 0 is the center. We have, again, radius is 1, which means we have 4 points. Okay, these 4 points, these would have the coordinates of 1, 0, 0, 1, -1, 0, 0, -1. Now, what do we use for this? Well, okay, so first of all, we can draw triangles like that for anywhere on this unit circle, right? Like that, and the radius is 1. Okay, notice this is also 1, right? And this is also 1. So the radius is 1. Okay, now we can draw any triangles within this unit circle. Now, so, but I mean, that's just, we can actually draw a special triangle within this unit circle as well, but then I think that just gets too much. So really, the only thing that you need to remember is, or are, these 4 points, okay, on the edges, okay? So at 0 degrees, this is at 0 degrees. The coordinates are 1 and 0. At 90 degrees, the coordinates will be 0, 1. 180 degrees is right here. The coordinates will be -1, 0. 0, -1 for 270 degrees. We could actually go back to 360 degrees. We could actually have this, and then this really just goes back to 0 degree, right? These two will be the same because it just rotates all the way once back to where it starts. Okay, so now what do we do with the unit circle? So what you need to recall is cosine theta. Recall cosine theta was equal to x divided by r. And because it's a unit circle, so this cosine x is simply just x, right? Because x divided by 1 is just x. Sine theta, it was, y over r. And again, because r is 1, so sine theta is simply just y. And recall tangent x, it was y over x. Okay? Okay, I don't need to, there we go. So cosine theta is just the x value at that point, the x coordinate of that point. Now at 0 degrees, here is 0 degrees, the x value at 0 degrees is 1. The y, so sine theta is looking at the y value, and the y value at 0 degrees is 0. Simply that, okay? You don't need to actually put into calculator, just refer to unit circle. Tangent theta, again, it's y over x, so the y coordinate at 0 degrees is 0, the x coordinate is 1. So this is simply just 0. Okay, I'll do one more. At 90 degrees, that's right here. Cosine, again, is referring to x. The x coordinate at 90 degrees is 0. And sine theta, sine of 90, would be the y coordinate at 90 degrees, which is 1. Tangent, again, is y over x. That will be 1 over 0. Now, you cannot divide it by 0, so we call this undefined. Okay, so go ahead and try to fill the rest of this table out. Okay, so this is what I should have. Again, cosine is about x. At 180 degrees, x is negative 1, y is 0. At 270 degrees, x is 0, and y is negative 1. Tangent x, y over x. So tangent theta is y over x, so that's 0, and this is undefined. Okay, so that's the unit circle. Special triangles, hopefully you still remember. We have two special triangles. I'll draw them out right here. Namely the 30 degrees, 60 degrees. The ratio would be 1 to root 3. Again, 2 is the longest side, so that has to be hypotenuse. 1 is the shortest side, so that's opposite from 30 degrees. If we're looking for sine of 30, then you look at from 30 degrees, sine is equal to opposite, right? That's the opposite side over hypotenuse. So sine of 30 degrees is 1 over 2. Cosine 120, similarly, we are going to refer this back to special triangle. However, you can see 120 degrees is not here, but the reference angle for 120 degrees, if you draw this out, here's 120. Here is the reference angle, and the reference angle is simply 180 minus 120, which is 60 degrees. So we are going to look at, look from 60 degrees right here. And cosine, the ratio for cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be 1 over 2. However, because we are in quadrant 2, recall cosine is negative in quadrant 2. Again, all students take calculus. Only sine is positive in quadrant 2. There was another special triangle. We actually didn't need it here, but I'll draw it out anyways. It's a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle, and it has a ratio of 1, 1, root 2. Okay, so if you have a reference angle of 45 degrees, then this is the triangle that you will be using. If you have a reference angle of 30 or 60, then that would be, this one would be the one that you need to use. Okay, next example here is as determine the possible value of theta if cosine theta is negative 1/2. Okay, so now again, because I see cosine being negative, therefore we will again have two cases. And in this, and also because theta is between 0 and 360, we'll have two cases. Cosine is negative. Again, cosine is x value, so x is negative in quadrant 2 and 3. So our case 1 would be in quadrant 2. And because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so if you look at this triangle, if 1 is adjacent, that means the reference angle is 60 degrees. Right? Again, let me say it again. Again, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that means 1 is the adjacent side and 2 is the hypotenuse side. You can see here 2 is definitely the hypotenuse side, no problem. If we want 1 to be the adjacent side, then that means we must look from 60 degrees angle. And that's why the reference angle is 60. Now because we're in quadrant 2, so again, here is the diagram, here is 60 degrees, and this is our theta number 1. So to do that, to find out theta 1, we simply take away 60 from 180, you get 120 degrees. Case 2, now we're in quadrant 3, so if you draw the diagram, this is 60 degrees, we're looking for this angle. So to find theta 2, you simply add 60 to 180 degrees, you get 240 degrees. Okay? Hopefully this makes sense to you, why we have two cases and how to use reference angle to find the actual angle in standard position. Okay. All right, here are some practice questions for you to do. I'll let you try the first two, and I'll show you the answer in a bit. Okay, so here are the answers for the first two questions. Again, what you need to do first is to find the reference angle. And you can see, because the first question, tangent to 10 is in the third quadrant, angle 210 is in the third quadrant, therefore the ratio for tangent will be positive. And we use the reference angle of 30 to figure out the ratio. Again, we look from this angle 30. Same thing with sine of 330. First, you find the reference angle, and because now we're in quadrant 4, so the ratio will be negative, okay? For the next two, tangent 180, this, again, you just need to refer to the unit circle. Tangent 180, recall tangent is opposite over adjacent, tangent is y over x, and 180 degrees is right here. The y value is 0, the x value is -1, which is just 0, okay? Cosine is the x value, so 90 degrees is right here, and the x value at 90 degrees is 0, so cosine of 90 degrees is 0. Okay, so there are 3 more questions for you to do. Give it a try. Okay, so for the next one here, it says cosine theta is -√2/2. This is also a special triangle, actually. It may not seem obvious, but this was 1/√2. If we actually multiply this by √2, and √2, you actually get √2, and a 2, and this is 45 degrees. So cosine theta is adjacent over hypotenuse, and you can see if this was the angle, adjacent side is √2 and the hypotenuse side is 2. So the reference angle here, okay, cos theta, this is equal to -√2/2. The reference angle here would be 45 degrees. And because we are looking at cosine theta being negative, so again, we will have 2 cases. Cosine theta being negative, that means we are in quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. So in quadrant 2, this is 45, here's theta 1, therefore theta 1 is simply 180 minus 45, which is 135 degrees. In case 2, where the angle is in now quadrant 3, here is theta 2, and we know the reference angle again is 45. To find theta 2, you simply go 180 plus 45, which is 225 degrees. Okay. Last example, or there's 2 parts. Part A says, given that sine theta is -4/5, we are looking for other trig ratios of the triangle. So now again, because it does not tell us which quadrant we are in, therefore we are again going to have 2 different cases. We don't know which one it's referring to. Okay, anyways, okay, fine, I'll tell you right now. This actually leads up to the next lesson, which is the ambiguous case. Okay, so sine theta equals to -4/5. So, well, I guess sine being negative, we will be in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Case 2 in quadrant 4. So now we have sine right here. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So here's the reference angle. And hopefully you know this by now. This is going to be the 3, 4, 5 triangle. But if you don't recognize that, that's okay. You can always just use Pythagorean theorem to solve for x. And just follow these steps. You should get x equals to 3. Okay, so there's our 3, 4, 5 triangle. Now, because we have sine theta equals to -4/5, we can then figure out cosine theta, because we now just figure out the adjacent side, which is 3. Because again, we're in quadrant 3, so cosine would be negative. Again, I need to remind you once again, all students take calculus. Quadrant 3, only tangent is positive. So tangent would be opposite 4 over adjacent, which is 4/3, okay? Positive 4/3. Case 2, in quadrant 4, it's really just the same triangle, but we are going to move that to quadrant 4. So the length, the missing side, is still 3, okay? The length will still be 3. So really, we don't need to do the calculation once again. We could simply get the answer. Now cosine theta, because now we're in quadrant 4, so cosine is now positive and tangent is now negative. Okay, so that's the difference between quadrant 3 and quadrant 1. Really, it's just the signs. Okay, part B, to the nearest degree, determine the possible value of theta for theta being between 0 and 360 degrees. So for case 1, we need to find the reference angle. And to do that, we simply take the inverse. I'll take the inverse sign actually, because that's given in the question, so there's no way there's a mistake there. And recall, when you take the inverse trig ratio, you always take the inverse of the positive value. So inverse sine of 0.8 we'll do to the nearest degree, so 53 degrees. So here's 53, here is theta 1. This will be 180 plus 53, which is 233 degrees. We have case 2. Okay, we have case 2. Again, the reference angle will not change. It's still 53 degrees, but now we are in quadrant 4. So here's 53, here's theta 2. This would be 360 minus 53 degrees. That's a weird looking 60. This is going to be 307 degrees, and that would be your final answer for part B. Okay, so that's 5 point. I'm losing. Oh, this is 5.2 part 2. Again, this is slightly more complicated in part than 5.1 because we are now dealing with angles in all quadrants. So this is what you really need to keep in mind. All students take calculus. Okay, you need to know when each trig ratio is positive and when it's going to be negative. Okay, otherwise it's fairly much the same thing. Okay, reference angle is also important. That you need to know for sure. Okay, do some practice questions. Let me know if you need help. Good luck.